So here we are. We're in Austin, Texas, and today is Army-Navy football game. And the four of us are going to sit down. Let's introduce ourselves so people know who you are, and let's talk about how this game and what it means to our two services branches, and where it started at and where it's headed towards, what we're doing today, and how that's what we've learned in the military and how that transcends into what we do from a cultural perspective and how we build leaders, right? So for everyone that's listening, thanks for listening to the Data Center Revolution. If you haven't yet had the chance, please subscribe. We need all the support we could get. And to that end, why don't you, Handsome, explain to people who you are. Put your microphone in front
Sure,
of you.
I got you. First off, go Army, But I just want to clarify, this game doesn't really matter to us. We're just focused on being the most battle-ready.
I would say that,
world,
too. If I lost 24-0 in the very first game and I was being dominated in the series, I would probably feel the same way if there's no chance of catching up.
Well, listen, my name's Jesse Sargent. I was in the Army, so we had to do actual war things, you know what I mean? It's not like the Navy. But anyways, yeah. Super happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Honored and blessed to be a co-founder with you and get to work with you guys every day. I mean, growing up
what
in
do you do?
I'm the president of delivery.
Of
ORF here at Overwatch.
Oh, okay. Well, sure.
Army
guys.
But, long story short, I'm super honored to be here and get to work with you guys every day. And, I mean, what we get to do in the space, developing leaders to go build teams, to build data centers. I mean, with the way the world is today, you can't have a better career path, a better job. I mean, I couldn't think of a better industry to be in, and just the lives we get to affect and the things we're doing every day. I'm honored to be a part of that. And, we all haven't been in the military and being military men. We carry a lot of that discipline and pride and everything to what we do here at work. And I think it's a good formula, and I think it's fitting for the day for Army versus Navy, but we got a lot of great leaders here that come from the military, and I just think that's a good thing for us to talk about today and how we're bringing people in and solving issues in the industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for being here, Jesse. Appreciate it. Handsome.
How am I supposed to follow that up?
I know.
I'm a professional belly ribbon dancer. I'm going to take your line. No.
Dabble in the silks.
Mike Sarraille, Chief Talent Officer here at Overwatch. Not a traditional data center guy. Kirk acquired Talent Work Group, which was an executive search and talent consultancy that founded about 6 years ago, and indirectly ended up in the space. And I remember, and you eventually said, "Hey, would you consider being the Chief Talent Officer?" And we'd already had an agreement to build TWG under the new company, and I started doing research and was shocked by just the impact this industry is having and the massive impact, the global impact it'll have into the future. And of course, I call the one guy who I always call to get advice, and that's my old man. He doesn't like being called old man. Though he's turning 80 next year, and he said this isn't even a question. And I didn't really need his counsel or advice. It's just, you get that one bounce, that one springboard. And the decision was easy. You guys had built a culture around, I know we say paramilitary, which may sound aggressive and people misunderstand that. It's what you just referred to. It's leaning on the discipline, the accountability, that tribe-like culture that you can build of all these individuals who collectively become a team trying to make the seemingly impossible possible. And love the challenge that was presented because we are growing at 30 a month. And you can't show me any, because we're about to be a medium-sized business by definition, you can't show me any small businesses that are growing at that pace. And in the challenge of bringing on 30 new souls and getting them to assimilate to
a brand new
tenets
industry.
In the industry, in the way we run the company and the culture we're trying to build, that's a challenge that even the best have failed at. And I have no doubt we will succeed. I have no doubt we'll stumble along the way, but we will figure it out collectively amongst the team that you've built.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, I appreciate it. Former Navy, as he said, right? So we have two bullet sponges sitting on the side of the table. But we really needed, the industry wasn't lacking genius or intelligence. It was lacking leadership. It was lacking courage. You wrote 2 books, The Everyday Warrior, I think may have been, was that your first book?
Second.
Okay, well, The Talent War was really what caught all of our attention as you're really talking about the demand of leadership. And at the same time, as he and I had been in the industry for a bit, we realized that the industry was starving and lacking for talent. We have the silver tsunami approaching us, which is half of our industry could retire in the next 2 to 3 years. We have 300,000 to 400,000 people we're short at right now in the industry. And we knew that we're just seeing an increase in the price of labor because we're not introducing more talent into the space fast enough. So we're just watching people demand more to make changes. So we're just stealing each other's people back and forth. That's untenable, and that wasn't scalable as an industry. Our industry is at a tipping point. The inflection point brings us back into the mainstream, specifically because of our dependency on energy, which is a primary vertical of industry for probably what we could consider the anchor of our economy is based on energy. And now you have a massively sophisticated, mature vertical of industry that has regulation, oversight, governance, and ethics, and it's emerging with our industry, which is still the wild, wild west. And we were like, we're going to need to find a way to build more leaders, and we could teach them data centers. Yeah. And getting to the talent war group and getting your brain involved, what we were doing was critical to the long-term vision we had to scale this industry. So thank you for doing what you do to bring your subject matter expertise. And you've been in the industry for a whole year now, and you're coming from the Special Forces community. So anybody from the Army, anybody from Special Forces, you don't have to have a technical background. We're trying to demonstrate everyone that is coming from the fleet, the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen, the Marines, every one of them has the ability to make an inference or an impact on this industry. And that takes me to where that started in my philosophy. And that was one of the guys that triggered me into understanding that I could go hire people adjacent industries and bring them in. And there was a value to that because he was looking at the binoculars the other direction from us. We were on the inside of an industry looking out. Before we got to you, I got to Joe, right? And Joe's celebrating his 3rd year with us.
3 years.
3 years. And he has, Joe, why don't you introduce yourself to people that are listening? They just see the muscles, but they don't know.
Dude, 3 years is crazy, by the way.
Yeah.
It went so dog fast. Years for startup is 20, I think. That's what it's not quite out. 7 like dog years. Joseph Pinzon, CEO here at Overwatch. And listen, it's been a fun ride. Former Army reservist. Now let me just preface this right now. You don't win NBA championships with 5 guys on the court. You need the 6th guy, the reservist, the guy waiting to come into the game. Okay, I'm just gonna throw it out.
They write books about those guys.
That's why there's a good strategy around service. So unlike these guys, which I'm very proud of, to be able to work next and side by side, I didn't get an opportunity to serve full time, but so I thank these guys greatly for that. But yes, 3 years here at Overwatch, and I will tell you, the unique feature, what Mike just mentioned, of adding 30 people a month, I don't know of many organizations globally that are growing at a compounded 10% of their population or their human assets on a monthly basis. And that's what we're growing at. So from a compounded standpoint, you're looking at 120% growth on humans alone. So we're a contributor to the economy. We're a contributor to America. And we are here to talk about many things, but we do have a cool, exciting game and a rivalry between Go Army and Navy. And the reality is, who doesn't dig football and who doesn't dig bullets and guns in the Army and Navy and our armed forces? So it really is America, right, we're experiencing today. So all kidding aside. Now, Army hasn't won in a long time. I think it's 9-2 is the record over the past 11 years.
I don't know who. I
have a nephew at West Point right now.
Army won. Navy won. Navy upset Army last year, but the year before that, Army crushed them.
Yeah, but there was a period in time. My brother
7 in a row.
It was like something like 13 years.
Yeah. There was, I remember vividly because my brother is a West Point grad, class of '96. He's at the game right now with a bunch of friends that we have from my father's there, and he was talking all kinds of trash one year when the Navy did finally lose. And I was like, you got to understand, your son's lived on this earth for 13 years and has never seen the Navy lose. And now he's at West Point, and This game is huge, man. The marketing behind it, the story that I grew up with the Army Navy game was it's the only football game that you'll be able to watch on TV where everyone that's playing is willing to die for everyone that's watching. And I mean, that's the same with Army, Air Force, or, the other branch. But this game has so much tradition, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas A&M, you must be conflicted since you have degrees from both. But this is a game that I grew up watching, and I tried to emulate all the things that I saw from those people. The character that's on that field really represents some of the best parts of America. Mm-hmm. So this is a great game. I thought what I would do is pull up just a few stats just in case you were wondering.
I bet you there's no NIL deals going on either one of those teams either.
No, there's not.
Yeah,
those are kids just playing for the love of football too.
So they've played 124 times, so this will be the 125th time they've come together. And Navy wins the series 62-55. They've had 7 ties. So I do think Navy looks like they're going to lay the wood today, but it sounds like you've already capitulated to that.
Which is just a weak standpoint. It's like, hey, I'm going to preface this if we lose.
But think about this
because
from
I
the
got
standpoint
the
of NIL and Army Navy and the reality of the portal and how they're competing. They're still Army, Navy, even Air Force, from a football standpoint, still are competing against other teams. I mean, listen, Navy is ranked inside of the top 25, and they were scaring an opportunity to possibly play in the playoffs. So, but here's what's crazy about that is you can't, and many folks don't understand that when we went into this portal situation that, everyone benefits. The academies do not benefit from that program because you start year 1 and you finish year 4. You can't come in.
Can they even
you
rotate
can't come in year
amongst the
2.
3? Do you know? If you were at Army, could you transfer to?
I don't think so. I think you have to start over.
You could, but you would have to start over.
Yeah, you start over.
Yeah.
There's prep schools for the academy that you go for 1 or 2 years, but once you get to the academy, you are starting as a freshman, right? So
they'll let you go spend a semester working. During the Army Navy game today, we'll watch so many people that are in the Navy that we were at the Naval Academy that are studying at West Point for a semester, and vice versa, and you'll see them swap sides of the field.
It's heavy from a community heavy academy in the Navy. If you ask any of them their best semester, if they did do one of those exchange tours,
the other side,
they're like, Air Force Academy was my best semester.
Oh, I'm sure.
Such a beautiful area to have a school campus.
They probably have great chow halls and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we talk about this game. We're going to be hosting a party today. We have a bar that we rented downtown. We have our teams and all of our friends coming in to watch it. We want to rally about that. The beauty about this industry, right, is it's a niche industry. It's small. Everyone knows each other. But there's communities even within the data center industry, right? One of them is Infrastructure Masons has done a great job at championing a bunch of women's leadership symposiums. There's so many great women groups that are emerging in this space because we need more diverse thought and talent that comes into this industry. But there's a big, I was doing some studying, and it was a surprise to me to learn that one of the largest contributors to the data center industry from a workforce perspective is the Department of Defense, or the Department of War now. And that means a lot of us former military who come from, we're in what's called the mission critical vertical today. And the mission critical vertical was defined many years ago by real estate brokers as any company that could quantify the downtime of 1 second of lost infrastructure technology by either death or $1 million of lost revenue per second. And that was what I was trained on when I first came in the industry in 2000. This is what's going to define this new vertical of industry is quantified by mission critical time or death or lost revenue. And I'm like, if it's downtime that's measured in revenue, we come from a mission critical background in the military that's just measured in our own mortality. So there's going to be people, if you're listening to this and you have kids in the military, or if you have friends that are in the military and they're thinking about joining this industry, I encourage you to pass this podcast along to them so they can understand that we all started from somewhere. And, there's not a lot of colleges offering degrees in data centers today. So there's a few, community colleges as we're learning, and, SMU has an incredible master's or advanced program for data centers. But there's certain things, it's just not as prevalent. So there's not a lot of kids that are gravitating or understanding how to get into this industry. And, we hire from the trades, we hire from colleges, but the military or first responders tend to have the appropriate emotional range to come into an industry like this and learn the new language that is involved with this technology? Because it's just a language, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree? I mean, from your perspective, you've been in the industry for a year now. You came from a pretty high-speed, low-drag community in the military. And, you got into your leadership side and leadership coaching and developing, and all of a sudden, boom, you're in this industry called data centers. Was it hard for you? Was it overwhelming for you to figure out how to, there's a lot of people that have only, when we were at DCAC, I asked, hey, how many people have only been in the industry for a year? And it seems like at least 1/3 of the audience raised their hands. So there's a lot of people that are getting introduced to this space. Was it hard? Was it overwhelming for you guys to come in being from the military or from other sides of technology and coming into a brand new industry for the first time? And what were the similarities that you were allowed to use to help acclimate or transition? Was it the culture that we used? That we're trying to create a military STEAM culture, which was a merit-based program that's really encouraging of failure, because growth is taught through failure. When you were training, they trained you to failure. So you can learn how to deal with setbacks and learn how to deal with learning, which is the growth is found in the mistakes that are made, right? So we try to create a culture to where anybody could come in and understand that they should feel safe making mistakes and asking questions. When you were getting into this industry, what were some of the things that helped you adapt and be most comfortable coming into it? I mean, yours came from the mechanical trade, so you kind of had some trade experience when I brought you in.
Yeah, but for me, professionally, I had the best experience. Personally, it was different. And so I try and encourage people all the time, especially if you're just now transitioning out of the military, right? I don't know how it was for everybody, but me and my wife got married when I was still in the Army. I got married, and then we spent the next 7-8 months apart, right? So I got out, was going to school, went to school, and was working in the mechanical trade. And I had been doing that for less than a year when I got introduced to you. And what I really focused on was, I was lucky enough to get the job with you, and then you sent me out to California, and wife and kids stayed in Ohio. So for me, I kind of shifted back into military mindset for a little bit, right? And so what I did was, my wife and kids weren't there. I was in an apartment out there by myself. I was the first one to the job site every day and the last one to leave. And if you remember, you had a rule. I wasn't even allowed in the trailer for the first 6 months. So
before 3 p.m.
That literally meant that I would get there, and I spent my entire day with the electrical foreman or the mechanical foreman or the controls guy or the commissioning guys. And I was just trying to learn every single thing I could. Like you said, it's just a vocabulary, right? If you look at the way we build these facilities, it's the exact same equipment that you see in any large commercial builds, right? The vocabulary is different. The rate at which we do things are different. Our speed, our acceptance of mistakes and things like that is different. And so that's why you need the discipline and the emotional range to deal with issues that you're taught in the military, because you talk about the incident all the time at Aligned and the way, Andrew was upset with me, but it's dude, we're going to be fine. Nobody's going to die today. We're going to just work the problem. We'll figure it out and we'll move forward. So it's that train to failure, know that things aren't always going to be perfect. But my transition into this space was ideal for what I was doing, right? To the career path that I wanted to take. So I would say, if you're looking to get into the space, we were talking about this a little bit last night. I would like to see the industry challenge itself with the fact that, we have all of these massive projects going on around the globe that we have tons of smart people involved with. We write huge contracts to engineers and, equipment manufacturers and all of these people that are experts in their area of this project, right? We simply need more leaders managing these teams, getting the right people in the room to have the conversations to solve the problems as the construction's going on. If we stick with the mindset that everyone has to have 10 years of experience, Mike, you're just as involved as I am with finding these people. at the rate at which we're going, we have to begin to accept more people into this space that are willing to be leaders, that have a base knowledge of construction, and just simply are going to have the ability to put your teams together to drive solutions, right? And so that's one thing I'd like to see this industry do more, and we are starting to see it. You know, I mean, we have clients that are starting to go that route and understand that they just need more leadership and more attention to detail on these programs. But yeah, that's what I love about what we're doing is your
transition was you went right into deployment mindset, and you know that when you get on a deployment and you're by yourself, it's time to dig in and start becoming your level of knowledge as an SME is the only thing that you can draw back on for comfort or stability, right? Yeah. So I can understand that. How was your default in transition?
So I think in very similar to you, coming in older, having a wealth of just or breadth of experience in different industries, I think the common thread that doesn't change regardless of what industry you jump into is people, bottom line. So dealing with people, whether it's in the military, the mission critical space, investment banking is always going to be the same, slightly different environments. Yes, a big key of why I made the decision to make the jump when you made the offer was because of the culture in the company that you had built. These are my people. And okay, this is a home, and that just got reinforced over the early months. But I think in life, I've been through the Dunning-Kruger cycle enough to realize to give yourself grace. Don't act like an expert coming in. I'm never going to be an MEP expert. I'm never going to be a safety expert. I'm never going to be a project manager expert. But I don't need to be given the role that I've come in into. So focusing with sort of an operational mindset of how do we deploy people? How do we deploy resources? Let the subject matter experts. And the other thing, too, that, again, has been honed over time and a lot of mistakes in my side is always have a deep, profound respect. And I think this is, I coined this term very early on when I retired is these are, warriors within their respective professions. You've done, regardless of your military side, what, 20 plus years now? 25?
In this industry, yeah.
You're a warrior within your profession because you've spent time in the trenches, you've taken scars. So just lean on those people, listen to them, take the advice to sort of accelerate my cycle. But I also have an unfair advantage. I'll be sitting in the meetings with you guys, and this was during the early days, and you guys keep talking about PDUs. Well, I've got this tool called AI where I'm like, PDU. Early on, I did a deep search on AI, and it spit out like a 50-page report of, I said, teach me everything I need to know from a 30,000-foot view of the data center space and like, tier facilities, block redundant. I still have to give myself time.
Sure.
Give me another like
immersion,
like 3 to 5 years until I will feel comfortable speaking the language. But it's been a wonderful experience, and I would encourage anyone. There's fear jumping from what you know into what you don't, and the only way to go about it is if you dip a toe. And then you dip 2 toes, you're prolonging the cycle. Jump feet first, give yourself some grace, put your time in the trenches, and before you know it, you'll be a data center veteran. And that is a beautiful thing. So it's been a good experience, but it would be different if I was in my 30s with limited life experience. I was just in a different place. And it's much like being a father again at the age of 48 with a 14-month-old who was kicking me in the face at 3 a.m. last night because they sleep horizontally in the bed. But
I'm pretty sure if you were my dad, I'd kick you in the face too, though. So, how about you, Joseph? Was it a hard acclimation?
No. So 3 years. Well, first of all, transitioning out of the reserves, you get that 1 weekend back. So that was rewarding and fulfilling for me. I got to get my lawn work done. But no, transitioning from the different industries into this industry 3 years ago. 3 years ago, literally, when I make a joke, is 20 years. It's 20 years of literally transformation I'm seeing.
You've lost all your hair.
I've lost all. 3 years ago, listen, I came from 26 years prior to that of business experience. I had a practice with my previous company. It was $1 billion cloud-based practice, and I had no idea what a data center was. So I was selling a retail application, but I had no idea. I mean, Cyrus One was who housed our cloud, but the reality, and we went to a couple data centers, but outside of that, I'm like, okay, big deal. It's in this building. I had no idea that the how our entire infrastructure, our business infrastructure was on the balance, is that balance of this industry. So when I came here, it was overwhelming and unique to understand that either this was purposeful, the best kept secret on the planet, or we just didn't have it wasn't socialized.
We didn't have the lexicon.
I think it happened so fast.
It
too.
did, because
You know what
look
I
at
mean?
today, you can't drive from home to work if you listen to any news rag that has business that's being announced, and candidly, not a business, a normal Fox News station. You're going to hear something around data center. However, it's because of AI. I mean, with AI, we still would not talk about the data center industry specifically. It's still application based, like IoT was the buzzword that we moved towards, and then cloud, and then obviously AI today. But then speaking about the military, and so I spent those 26 years, and if there was never a military initiative in any of my businesses, period. And if you were in the military, it was more of hey, you're in the military, tell me about it. That was it. That was around the camaraderie of military in the spaces that I was in. And so I really didn't understand the value. It was like, that was their walk, that was their path of life, that they joined the military, and they just so happened to be cross-section, cross-functional, crossing on my path. But what's really interesting about the military is, and then coming to Overwatch, it was almost the fact that when we pushed transitioning veterans, it was almost like, do us a favor, not us, but the industry. Like, bringing them in is almost a protected, charitable opportunity. They need a chance or a shot. And it was short into my career here at Overwatch, and I was like, that's fucking crazy. Because I started to see guys like you in this space. I started to see other guys like you in this space. And I'm like, we're probably not going to get guys like you to do what you guys are doing outside that we're not in the military, candidly. So then I started to look at this thing, and even when we're talking to the industry leaders, they were like, yeah, we want to do this because it's just good to help veterans. and I started to go, well, wait a second. No. We're doing you a favor by introducing you to veterans because of what veterans bring to the table. Yeah. And now, and this is a PSA. If whoever listens to this, there's not a military transitioning veteran that we wouldn't want to speak to. I don't care what your job was. We want to talk to you because we want to educate you and bring you into this industry, because we know, listen, if we can, of those 30 people, that 10% growth, if 50% of those were transitioning veterans, that would be wonderful. I would take 75% because of what they bring to their learning curve is compressed, their leadership is built in, their discipline and skill set is ready to go. They're doing us a favor by coming into our industry, because that's how we're going to fast track the industry. There's a lot, listen, this is not against the civilian world, but there's a lot of opportunity for growth here. We're behind schedule. We need to move forward. Our best step forward is mobilizing transitioning veterans and existing veterans into our space. Period. Hard stop.
Let me make a comment there. So that is a societal change, because fewer people serve. Only 1% of our population.
1/2 of 1%.
1/2 of 1% now serve. So a lot of people have not walked in our shoes. What they gain is, or the knowledge they gain about the military or perception is from Hollywood or the media. But if you look back, and you probably remember this, World War II, for all the veterans that came home, 49% started their own businesses. That's 1 and 2. A lot of them used their GI Bill. Mm-hmm. The greatest economic boom we've seen in our country was on the back of the veterans coming home from World War II. the GEs, the Johnson and Johnsons, the IBMs, the PepsiCos used to have general management programs where they wanted these senior enlisted and officers coming into their program because they know they have the discipline. They know they're process and procedurally oriented. They know how to run operations. They're accountable. They know how to lead teams. And we've gotten away with that. I mean, arguably the epicenter of the United States for the last 20 years has been Silicon Valley, which doesn't have a large veteran population within those companies. And so people have lost sight of the value veterans bring, and they've become, to your point, a charity case because what is the media talking about nonstop? Veteran suicide.
Yeah. And homelessness and all
yes.
of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you mentioned it a second ago, like the only reason that it is somewhat being talked about mainstream right now is because of AI.
Yeah.
But what I feel like the general public still doesn't understand is every single thing you do today runs through a data center. I mean, think about it. Everything you do on your phone, when you're ordering something on a kiosk at a restaurant, when you're like all of that data. Now, sometimes it's still on-prem, right? We still have a lot of stuff that people house on-prem, but it is still the same. It is being run through
but even that on-prem has
data.
To communicate
It
outside
does.
of that
That's
facility.
That's exactly right. And the thing that people don't realize is if we don't staff this industry appropriately and we do not grow it the way that it needs to grow, your entire way of life could be at risk, right? Like if another nation becomes the superpower in this, it will be very hard to overcome that once they have it. You know, luckily we're in a good position with how many data centers we have in the US compared to the rest of the world and everything like that. But, you know, we're behind in nuclear power generation, and I'm sure we'll touch on things like that. But my point is the general public does not understand how reliant their way of life is to what this industry does. And, you know, making it mainstream, making people understand what it is we're talking about. And like you always say, like making people understand, like, this is the next utility. This is what people will not be able to live without. Like your way of life, as you know, it cannot continue forward without this. The more that message gets out, the more accepting people become of what we're having to put these resources and power into, and getting, whether it's transitioning veterans or civilian personnel in other aspects of construction, getting them into this space, getting them to understand what it is we're doing. It's critical. And I just think the general public doesn't necessarily understand just how critical it is.
I think if we zoom out of that, because that's a good point, right, Jesse? So for those that are listening, we're in the fifth industrial revolution. And what we're talking about is if, you know, this is 2025. Go backwards 100 years, 1925. We're still in the very early stages of the automobile industry. We were making Model Ts till 27. And when we were building cars, we were putting them on the roads long before we had service stations, long before we had gas stations, petroleum stations. We, as an industry, the automobile industry, as it was emerging, lacked governance, oversight, and ethics. Sound kind of familiar to the data center industry today. And what happened was we put fleets of automobiles on the streets, and then those that had interest in that emerging technology fell within orbit of that automobile, and later on, the craft, the trade, and the profession of becoming a mechanic just followed. And we're doing the same thing here. And to your point about utilities, you know, the very first utility that was ever introduced into a home was plumbing. And the second was electricity, right? And that was towards the end of the 19th century, we were putting illumination in homes, which was the cursor to drive electricity. We had a current war between what we would use standardization as a nation between DC and AC. We know where that ended, but then we got to illumination, and we had people that were installing cables and light bulbs, and a lot of them came from other craftsmanships. They were woodworkers or maybe blacksmiths, and they worked in certain components. And then around right towards, I want to say like 1894 to 1897, when this electricity stuff started really taking off, this collection of people that were in that craft came together and standardized on a trade. And that trade was defined by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the IBEW. And that was before the 1900s. They created a tradesmanship. The third utility that followed was connectivity in a home, which also was adopted. And in the second industrial revolution, we found AC and DC power. We also discovered powered flight and connectivity. Now we had connectivity in a home. Abe Lincoln was the first president to ever use the telegram while in combat, talking to his generals on the front line, which revolutionized war. So connectivity was emerging, but it took years before it became a mainstream utility. It took 27 years before 1 in 4 Americans adopted electricity in their home from the time it was introduced to the market. It was plumbing, the second was electricity, the third was connectivity, the fourth was gas. If you take those 4 utilities and add them together into an industrial commercial perspective, you have the fifth utility. And that's called cloud. That's data centers. So data centers are already a utility. So much like creating an electrical trade, we're in the process of creating data center apprentices, data center journeymen, and data center masters. And we'll talk about that at the end. But we're trying to adopt the things that we learned in the military. Even you beat yourself up too much about being a reservist, but if you went to basic training and you took the same oath, I mean, I challenge any of you to help me find a better vehicle to redefine the constitution of a human being in less than 12 weeks than the U.S. military. Everybody that knows anybody that went into the military.
Fact check.
I was going to say
the Marine Corps is the only one with a 12-week boot camp.
I was actually, if you're Army and you're infantry, it's 18 weeks.
So it's true. So if you score lower on your ASVAB,
that's with
advanced.
Your MLS, yeah. That's what your school.
If you're going to
your
be a
MLS.
bullet,
But we're the only ones that stay at the exact same place the entire time.
for how long?
Well,
18 weeks.
But that's because you guys aren't as intelligent, right? So it takes us a little bit.
I think what it is they have to make us a little bit tougher because, when you're just riding around in a sub under the water.
Well, listen,
Jesse Puller's rolling in his grave right now.
but the Marines have the notoriously hardest boot camp outside of infantry. If you're not going to be an infantryman, you're not going to go to boot camp for 18 weeks.
No.
Okay.
I mean, you had stress cards.
I did not.
I think you did.
You carry them now.
100%.
From what I heard, you
pulled
pulled
one
that
out
card.
No,
right
I
away.
can't wait until Skylar and them get here today because I did not have stress cards. There was no such
But
thing.
they did change. I mean, like guys would walk behind you guys with like water buffaloes, handing you guys water. I mean, I remember.
No. What? You didn't get timeouts? But what I'm saying is, what we could all agree is Uncle Sam does a pretty good job of rebuilding a human being
100%.
in
Yes.
3 to 4 months.
Changed my life.
And
It does, because even to the, everyone asks, do you guys remember the what I remember, and that's probably what formulated my operational minds today, was not anything other than the military. Why the fuck did you need to fold your socks like that? The drawer had to be identical. They gave you a diagram and said, that's how you're going to fold your shit exactly.
and it has to be
Attention to
right
detail.
there.
If you can't do the small things well, how can we trust you with the large things?
And so, but you're not explained that when you're 18 years old.
It's wax on, wax off.
Yeah, and so until you become an adult, you go back, and I wake up in the middle of the night with that diagram in my mind, and it says, holy shit, I've got to set the same diagram when I think about IT strategies. I have to set this. It's an amazing phenomenon how something as small and minor in the military translated into the business side for me. That was real.
See, the socks weren't what got me. It was the massive Samoan drill sergeant when I slipped in my own sweat doing push-ups, saying he was going to kick me in the teeth if I slipped again. That's really what changed my mind.
You notice
Every kid needs to have that
It wasn't
story.
the socks.
One in Fortune 500s, a disproportionate amount of the CEOs come from the military, and I also have a saying that West Point rules the world. I mean, West Point is...
The long gray line has a strong mafia.
They have a strong mafia. But even great business leaders, I mean, prolific CEOs, even if they didn't serve, have a profound appreciation, and they are heavy readers of military history and military leadership. Those things transcend. And I think, again, the private sector loses sight of that. To the point you're trying to make is the military can create a supply line of human beings in a rapid fashion. Look to World War I, look to World War II. The industry lacks that. And if the industry doesn't solve it, I'm going to assure you that government won't.
Yeah.
Government only comes in when something's drastically come off the rails. And this is something we need to get ahead of. And hell, we just were on the Hill, Congress, speaking to Texas, district congressional members, and we were briefing them on data centers, and the staffers were just looking at us like we've got something grown out of our head. They're tracking data centers. They don't know the policy around it. And there's a saying, and you guys have probably heard it, if you don't take an interest in politics, politics will assuredly take an interest in you. And I love the fact that we're now getting into governmental affairs as we're here as advisors to help shape your policy, also crisis management. And it was almost like they had gotten down on their knees and they're like, thank you, we need your help. And I mean, we've got one of the top 10 global voices in the data center space. We also have somebody at Legend Energy that is
top
prolific
10 leadership gurus in the world.
So I think, given the you want to call it the infancy of this industry, which isn't an infant, but it's.
Some people think this industry started in '94 when Amazon.com went live, because at the time it's rumored that they occupied 60% of the internet traffic. Today, there's some will tell you 12, I will argue 7 companies that represent more than 80% of the internet traffic. So it is, if you look at the history of the industrial revolutions, the most profound technologies have all come from America. The first was the cotton gin and the steam engine, which mechanized factories to ships for transportation, for war, but we created a locomotive train which transformed society on the West. Okay, the second was AC and DC power, both America, powered flight, the Wright brothers, and connectivity was Alexander Graham Bell. You have a lot of things that happened in between the second and the third industrial revolution, fission, fusion, and hydrogen amongst some of the most important discoveries, again, in America, which led to rockets and spaceships and things of that nature. But when you got into the third industrial revolution, around 69 to 2000, that was the birth of AI, with the precursor of 1953 building the very first data center built for and funded by the U.S. government for national defense and intelligence. Going back to what you were talking about, 0.5% of the U.S. population is wearing the uniform today. But we ironically represent 20 to 22% of the U.S. workforce, we veterans. So we are a bigger community and growing. It was the first time that we had 2 vice presidential candidates, both were military veterans. So veterans are emerging more into politics and getting more into leadership roles at G1K or Global Fortune 1000 companies, because we bring an experience that involves a lot of pressure testing and stress inoculation. I don't know what you had to go through in all the Army training, Army intelligence and military police stuff, or what you had to do in special forces. There's a lot of training and pressure that we go through to get onto a submarine. So it lends itself to this thing to where when we come out, I think the military, it teaches you how to learn. And when we came back from World War II, it was closer to 55% of all new businesses were started by veterans, and most of those businesses were building. Okay, so both of my grandfathers were combat infantry, and they both came back from World War II, and they both became general contractors. They were builders. And then one of my grandfathers was not only a member of the Carpenters Union, but he got into the Masonry Union as well. So he was a mason and a carpenter, and my other one was a builder on the GC side. So it's not foreign to the veterans to come out of the military and transition right into building. If you think about us veterans, did you join the military to make money? Is that why you did it? Why did you do it?
Love a country, service, something beyond yourself.
Something more significant than us. We did it to make a difference. And it turns out these veterans coming out of the military that are trained on the most advanced weapons, machineries, and techs ever built, as well as one of the strongest incubator leaders, leadership incubators, I should say. Yeah. I mean, we are learning hierarchies and left seat and right seat cockpit training continuously. You get to the command, the first thing I had to do was learn my job. The second thing I had to do was begin learning the job of the person in front of me. And the next thing I had to do was start teaching my job to the person below me. And that's very similar to the culture that we're building, because the military builds their workforce to scale while on deployments. They have to have people moving up and out all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have, tragically and sadly, you have setbacks at all levels. So if you think about it, we are already trained at the highest level of emotional range. We come from a mission critical background already, so any military experience you have should be counted as mission critical experience already from my perspective, because it's all about people, leading people and managing others. And at the same time, we're the perfect ones to come out of the military to go put onto your job. It's economically efficient as a business leader. It's financially creative to all parties, because these veterans are going to come out and they're just willing and asking to be paid proportionate to their value. They just want the opportunity to make a difference, to be a part of something that contributes to something bigger than themselves. which is why we joined the military in the first place. And it allows us to put we are overlooking the value of the military, and it shouldn't be a sympathy hire. It should be for the reasons that we're trying to describe now, which is we are literally trained on some pretty advanced shit, but we are taught how to learn. More importantly, we're taught through immersion training. I don't know what you guys did. I had to sit in classrooms with no windows and learn shit that I couldn't take out of the room. And I had to learn study habits in a better way. And none of that prepared me for the fleet. I still had to get to the fleet. All that time in school prepared me to get to the fleet, but I learned what I really did in the Navy by being in the fleet, on the job training, immersion training. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the skills and those are the advantages that veterans bring, is they have the ability to come in early, stay late, volunteer for the hardest shit. They're willing to learn the hardest things. They have been under significant amounts of pressure at some point in their life, and they're going to be paid proportion of their value. And whereas right now, if you have a screwdriver in your garage and you live in the state of Virginia, even if you don't know which way to turn it, you're probably worth $125 an hour. Where this industry pays well, it has great opportunities to have a really great living. I believe that the data center industry itself will be the only industry that can build back the middle class, because we will create jobs that don't require college degrees, but will give these people the ability to make something proportionate to their value with an overall total earning potential that has a higher upside than what they could find from most other verticals.
Hey, I have a podcast rookie move. I've got to use the bathroom.
Of course. Go Tiny Tanks. All right, we're back. Tiny Tanks gave us a nice little break. Appreciate that. So no more energy drinks for Mr. Pinzano.
Can I make an observation? He's dropped the F-bomb twice. You've dropped it a couple. I don't know if you have, but there is a distinct difference between officers and enlisted.
But only in the Navy.
No, but it's a point I want to make. Have you guys ever seen, I think it was like the Officer Leadership Manual from like 1914. You probably know where I'm going with this. The enlisted man is wily and cunning and must be watched at all times. You've never heard that?
All true.
We do breed a certain degree of healthy disrespect in the military. People may think it's all like rank and file and you're just going to follow orders. But what's interesting is there is no difference between the enlisted and officer community now. And what I mean by that is, yes, there's different
college
roles.
Degree.
Bro, the enlisted community was more educated than the officer community in a lot of ways. My guys had masters when I had none. And to watch, this is what's interesting, which I think speaks to veterans. So we would go on a raid, and we were on what we call vampire hours, hunting at night. And we would be lucky if we got back at like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. And we usually try to get back because the chow hall was open. And we'd be like, hey, let's hurry this mission up. Let's get home for breakfast. But we debrief the mission. That could be an hour. That could be 2 hours, depending on what happened. And then those guys, even though they've just been in a firefight, did an adrenaline dump, they're exhausted, they're dehydrated, would go back to their hooches on sometimes shoddy bandwidth and knock out 2 to 3 hours of their masters until it was complete on deployment. You tell me where you can replicate that in the private sector. Yeah. And there are people that never served in the military that are driven like that, but that speaks to the quality of these men and women getting out. What people also don't understand is, one, does anyone know what the largest provider of scholarships is? What organization in our, and it is a specific service.
Army.
And you guys are arguably the largest.
So.
This is the most educated military, beyond being trained on the most advanced weaponry, tech, and equipment. This is the most educated military in the history of mankind, and it's only accelerating.
Yeah, I think there was a time we were joking about it. We joke about it like, there's two types of people that join the military, and some of them are what that guy called it yesterday, the false starts. The people that start in college. I'm a false start. Then I went to college, thought I'd wrestle for a little bit until finally, my dad was wise enough to be like, "What was your plan after college?" And I was like, "I was gonna go in the Navy and do this and that." He's like, "You might want to just consider that now, right?" So, but so you have some people that false start there, and then you have some it's part of their lineage or something else, But it's not like it used to be, right? Some of the greatest people I've ever worked with were those people that I found in the military. But their equivalency, the people that are on their deployments that are doing their stuff, every time I went to sea, I was CLEP in a class, right? Every time I go to sea, I come back and take a CLEP. And if you haven't done that, I mean, it was the easiest way to, I didn't want to sit in analyzation and interpretation of American English literature. I'd rather not take that class for a semester and just test out of it. So I was constantly educating myself. Even as an E4, I had my needs modules done to E9. I was that big of an idiot. You know what I'm saying? So I was always trying to feed myself. But the military does a good job of teaching us how to do that. The civilian counterparts that we have that do that are the ones that we hire that went to community college for 2 years and then they transferred into a bigger school or something like that. But like they were working at night or going to school during the day and working at night. Like there's those hustlers that, we have only 43 or 47% of our workforce is military, which means the majority, more than half of our workforce on our own company aren't military, but they think like us, they act like us, they carry the same chip on their shoulder, they're hustlers. And that's, when when we started this business, we were evolving. A company starts with the capabilities and limitations of those that started it, right? So it was us 3 founders, only 2 of us we could afford to make employees. We had 1 business unit, 0 customers, and we've seen how big we've grown. But our growth has allowed the business to grow in a lot of different directions. With your involvement, we shifted, Joe. There's 5 phases of a business. You have to create it. That was fun, wasn't it? You guys weren't here during the founder sides, but you've heard some of the stories where you're not sure if you're going to live or die. Yeah. We were taking a risk knowing that if it didn't work out, we could go get another job.
That would be fine.
Yeah. Right? So you operate like as if, you take a lot of risk tolerance. Then you have to stabilize the business. I brought in Joe Pinzon as the chief strategy officer. The versatility of the military that Joe got too was that when the business began to standardize, I shifted him into a completely different CRO role, right? When we started optimizing the business, phase 4, he moved into a COO role. And right around the same time that I was standardizing on the business, we realized what we had to standardize on was labor. Our primary line of business that generates revenue is a human being. And I need, like right now, every element of the supply chain is standardized. If you're in this industry and you're going to buy a UPS, all the manufacturers, even in the automobile industry, there's asset classes, there's trucks, there's vans, there's so on and so forth. In our industry, building blocks were built by standardization so that supply chains could standardize logistics and shipping, right? So everything is, to the same footprint or topology, plus or minus very much or very little. So we standardize on the size, topology footprints we use on building. Everything we do is standardization. Labor is the only thing we haven't standardized on. So around that phase time, I said, hey, bro, I need you to stop doing what you're doing. I need you to be the standardization of talent. You're the new chief talent officer. And your versatility was, hey, I'm going to evolve into this new role. And you pivoted, right? So we knew that we had to start figuring out how to support this guy. This guy was leading a business that demanded the growth of talent. And you had to go figure out, how do I find talent? How do I standardize on that talent? And then how do I train it so I can retain it forever, right? And the only thing I said is you need to go figure that part out because no one's ever done it before in this industry. And by the way, while you do it, you have to make a bulletproof culture. You have to make this cult-like culture to where people on the outside want to be in. And that's hard to do because the level of work that we operate at isn't for everyone. The level of success we're reaching right now also isn't for everyone. But you watch the Tour de France takes off and it has the greatest bike athletes on earth. And then you just slowly see them falling out the back of that peloton. And that's kind of what we're seeing in this industry take shape is we need to standardize on talent, small, medium, and large, data center apprentice, data center journeyman, data center masters. And we have to just start figuring out how we could transition people out of the military while simultaneously building a culture that can attract, train, and retain the best talent. And those are things that we learned in the military too. We would get to these commands and we were just building these teams and trying to forge these teams. And it all came back to people and it all came back to relationships. You're in the top 10 leadership gurus in the world right now. So, your books have made it attractive for us to find someone who can standardize and show what you've learned in discipline and all the things in the military to create consistency because consistency is the only thing that wins, right? So, being told to go build something that never existed before and then while simultaneously working with us to build a bulletproof culture, what was that like and what were you drawing on all these experiences to help bring those things together for us?
It's, to touch on the recruiting piece, that that absorbed, I think, the majority of our time. That was a collective effort across sales, ops. That became a primary focus. And even over the course of, and it's actually less than 12 months, we've completely revamped that one function. So that
it's less than 8 months, Mike. I mean,
is it?
It started in April. So think about that. That's crazy. April, the transformation around that process.
Yeah. And there were hard decisions there. We did not have the right people in the right seats. Yep. And so there was a little bit of a bloodletting. We found the right two leaders to run the day-to-day. But, we collectively came together and were like, hey, how do we solve this? And we tested a little. We learned a lot. We made adjustments. And, the high-performance people that I know are never good with good enough. Even if you're number one in your industry, a lot of high performers will say, we'll just consider that everyone else sucks. So it doesn't mean we're at our peak or that there's not massive room for improvement. And we've got a crack recruiting team who's resourced properly now in terms of headcount and technology. But we still have so far to go. And I know I'm going to set the bar a little too high over here, will be like, this is the new standard. And it's just like every time we reach a new bar, he's pushing that bar up by like 10 more hires per month. Which you should do as operations and as a CEO. But that was hard. There was a lot of scary moments. But damn, you look back at the journey and you're like, we've come a long way and we did it together. Same thing with the culture. You guys have been a 5-year company and you guys founded it in your receptiveness to changing the culture code for Overwatch Mission Critical. I got zero resistance. And I came to you and I said, hey, I want to redo the cultural tenets and reset the left and right handrails for the company. And you guys were like, let's do it. And that alone was a 4-month process before we unveiled that. And arguably, could I have expedited that and pushed the team quicker? I could have, but there was a delicate nature to whenever you're going to move someone's cheese or make rapid or severe changes like that, the rollout has to be well executed and well thought out. And
which we stumble on.
And we're getting there. But like so proud.
This is a growth company. We only grow through those learning things, right? So if it wasn't this, it'd be something else. Stumbling seems to be the best way for us to learn. Don't you agree?
Yeah, as long as you have the ability to stop and be like, man, we really fucked that up.
And
like, what did we learn?
You know what I guess I do like is that, or not I guess, one of the things I do love is like take the rollout we just had, right? And I know you guys know what I'm talking about, where we switched everybody over, right? If you look at that rollout compared to a rollout we did 4 months ago, there is a massive difference. You know what I mean? Am I saying this rollout was perfect? To your point, nothing's ever perfect. Yeah. You know what I mean? But one thing that did happen this time,
I can tell you exactly what was imperfect. It's written on my.
but what I'm getting at is what's awesome though is like there was people from every different group,
cross-functional team
that were like, okay, well, all right, that got missed. That's cool. I'm here. Let's figure this out. Yeah. You know what I mean? And every different group did that in some aspect, and we were able to hit the goal that we had. You know?
But it's worth noting, and it's not that you're missing it, that platform rollout traditionally would take a company 4 to 6 months. You just got it done in 45 days. And that's speed and agility.
That's exceptional cross-functional teams.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Coming off of a equity raise, which I think, even to our partners, admittance that the fact is he's never seen anything quite like our level of preparation and how we pushed him, that group versus them.
That was a world record how fast we raised that capital.
We create the standard because that's military precision and military speed. But Mike, I want to give you credit too for setting a culture. Listen, this can easily have a lot of unintended consequences. Being a military, paramilitary based organization, 46%, you can really turn off a lot of good civilians that want to come work here because they're embarrassed. They feel like they're not good enough to work for us because we're military minded. We've created an environment where it's the opposite. Civilians want to come to us because they want to be part of something that they admittedly may have said, hey, I missed that when I was 18. I wanted to do that. My dad did that. My uncle did that. And oh my God, now I get to be able to do that in the civilian sector because I'm working for Overwatch. So it's created a really unique environment. And, folks will always tell me early on, they would say, hey, listen, almost like apologist, I'm sorry I wasn't in the military. And now they're like, hey, I'm part of this organization. And folks will always ask me, how do you get that organization like that? And I'm like, it's like anything else. Just because you say, hey, even like Salesforce we're talking to, they have this Salesforce military and so forth. Just because you tie your company and say military doesn't mean that you're going to even move the needle in reference to that initiative. You have to live it. You have to, Mike, you've set that up. You've got to live it. You've got to walk it. You've got to represent that. And you have to constantly post reminders around that. It's not a campaign. It's our walk. It's our way of life. And that's how we're going to grow. And that's going to feed transitioning veterans to Overwatch even at a much quicker rate of speed.
Yeah. Do we have a confidence within this company? Yes, we'll figure it out. Will it be pretty? Most times, no. But we will get there. And, people watch special operations movies, and you know this extremely well, and it looks really pretty in the movies. There's not one mission I came back from where I'm like, we crushed that. Like, did you see so-and-so fell off the ladder at 14 feet? Like, or this happened, or it's never pretty. And progress over perfection. What is going to be interesting, and it is a universal truth of life, if you grow by 30 people a month, cultures dilute. And that's the challenge. And that excites me, of how do we maintain the culture that we have despite massive growth. Yeah. The military's done it. They've figured it out. We will figure it out, but that is going to be a challenge moving forward as you're adding that many humans, because one human being has the ability to destroy a culture, even if you have 6 years.
This industry averages 22%, according to, it was the Infrastructure Masons State of the Industry report that Dean was just on the podcast talking about, which I encourage everyone to read those reports, because it really, if you track them like I do, the linear trending would allow anyone with a ruler to figure out where we're going, right? But in that, our industry is 22% veterans, which is higher than any other industry right now. Yeah. I'm telling you, one of the largest contributors.
By far, highest than any industry.
And of that 22, how much, I've never seen a community or an industry controlled by sub. Guys. Every time you can throw a nickel in this industry and hit somebody who's on a sub, a nuke.
I think that it was one of the first, because of our exposure to energy, I think there's so much, so many parallels, right, to allows us to, like when we were talking to the president of Saber Uptime regarding what you're doing with this schoolhouse stuff, he said, hey, look, if I'm hiring civilians, they need to have this much experience. But if they're coming out of like certain communities in the military, like Air Force Power Pro, then that checks all those boxes. And there's so many overlapping qualities. Jesse and I were talking about it yesterday. If I went to QTS and Compass and Cyrus One and Vantage and any other operator, and on any of their application sites, they'd have a job listing posting for construction manager or project manager. Mm-hmm. If I took all of their job descriptions and overlaid them, how much do you think they're similar? Like, how many similar things do they each have as a minimum requirement to be a PM?
For a PM, they're 85, 90%.
85 to 90% of each of their job requirements or job listings would ask for the same minimum standards. Why wouldn't we just go find those people that meet those standards, right? And if you define what that strike zone looks like, then you can say, like that Saber Uptime president was like, look, if they came from these communities, then I know they could come in next day and just need someone with experience in a data center to walk them through some of the other things. But if they could read a one line and they could do certain basic elements and they understand, then they're going to walk right in and do fine, right? So there's a lot of things where we could see the similarities between what the industry needs as a standard, and then we will define schoolhouse training and curriculum around those standards that meet those minimum requirements. So the only way for this industry to grow is like when people are building Stargate, they'll go to the union hall and say, hey, I need 200 of these, all right? And they don't need to see the 200 resumes because they know if they met that standard, then they'll take those 200 off the assembly line of creation of products, so to speak. So we are creating leaders that are going to be standardized. And if you take the languages of everything that you see in the market and you merge it together and you see the patterns, you could just train to that standard and train to that pattern. And I think you're going to use some of the military training that we've used.
Well, and like you were just talking about Navy nukes and how many are in this space, and like going with what you're talking about and kind of what I meant earlier that I wish the industry would understand more. I think Navy nukes were so accepted and so, the reason you can hit one if you throw a football in the data center space is because they knew the equipment, they knew the criticality of operating that equipment and the operational procedures that it takes to operate that equipment, which is what leads to the 100% uptimes and things like that.
And it was easier than what
That's right. And so that's why you can transfer
complicated.
them over easy.
Yeah.
What I think the industry is just now realizing, and we need to realize more, is that you take a combat arms individual, an enlisted individual that was a squad leader or a platoon sergeant or
damage controlmen, aviation boatswain's mates.
But even when if you look specifically at combat arms, that platoon leader is a project manager of 3 or 4 different specialized things that make up that line unit. And it's his job to manage the time of those people, their equipment or their budget,
Their schedule,
right? And that, like, combat, if we can get the industry to understand more that a combat arms individual is going to be able to come in and be exactly that, be the leader of that team that is building that project, right? If we can realize, you're talking about all those skills that overlay, right, for a project manager. If we can continue to shift to where people understand that is what a good project manager does, is he manages the team that's responsible for building that facility.
That's another great example of incredible overlapping skill sets that the military offers that are already acceptable by this industry by many means. So like before the middle of next year, 1 in 4 members of the workforce in the United States for data centers, 25% from 22 today, will be veterans. So our job is to figure out how there's anywhere between 30 and 40,000 people perhaps coming out of the military every month, right? So we're going to find a lot of talented people that have been through pressure training, stress inoculations. If they had a military operational specialty or a naval enlisted career or MOS, NEC, they probably had some sort of not just training where they got validations or accreditations, but they've got qualified in certain things that are complicated. Qualifications in the military are sometimes harder than when you get out of class, you get a diploma, but you don't get qualified until you learn how to operate. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of things that these veterans coming out have incredible training skill sets for. And I think that we're going to do a better job of finding purpose for them, right? And they want to be a part of something meaningful and significant. Look at Stargate. That's known as the Manhattan Project of our generation. There's never been a construction program that has been announced that's bigger than that one so far, right? So what those Stargate programs are going to be are incredible. And those aren't 1-year programs. Those are 3, 5, 7-year programs, which are incredible careers for transitioning veterans. And it's, again, giving them the opportunity where they don't have to. Like when I was on deployments, I was doing everything I could to chip away at my college degree, all right? And you said it best, like we have an incredibly intelligent military, but I don't measure that on scholarships and education because I have learned that the smartest people I've ever worked with are self-taught. Like those guys that would come back from a patrol that was incredibly exhausting, and they would still go online and finish 2 hours of their degree. Those people are self-taught, they're self-driven. Those are the most educated people. Those are the most intelligent people I know. I'm not sure if they're the most educated. Does that make sense?
There's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
No.
So, but figuring out a way to do what you were talking about in combat arms is figure out how we could define and codify. If we took and codified the minimum requirements of every traditional operator from a project manager, just there are 9 different job domains that represent 285 different jobs in this industry, but that's one example. Okay, so if you take that one example and then you equate it to what we do in the military, I think that when you start having 1 in 4 of us in this industry, that makes a lot of influencers for purchasing decisions and hires, right? So we'll be able to we'll understand how to analyze and interpret these military resumes quicker, and we'll be able to convert that into transferable skills that are in high demand from those operators.
Yeah. And another great one that we haven't even touched on that is, the number one KPI in our space is safety. And if you look at what it takes to get a CHST certification, which is a premier safety certification that, almost everyone requires, and now you will not find a job site that for every 100 subcontractors, there's at least one safety guy for every 100, right? I mean, the programs you were just talking about alone are going to be in the tens of thousands of people, right? So, think about that, right? You can come out of the military with the attention to detail that you already have and the leadership capabilities you have, because safety is not an easy job on these job sites, right?
Yeah, not the speed we move at.
Exactly. And you've got project managers fighting you about, I need to get this done. You've got at the end of the day, this is all a financial game as well, right? There is money tied to every bit of this. Speed to market is where it's at. So, you have to have those people skills, and you have to have those leadership skills, and you have to have the ability to speak truth to power. So, if I'm transitioning out of the military right now and I've got a family I've got to take care of and I need to make a good living, aside from the project manager route and everything like that, safety is a great spot to go. Yeah.
What else are you guys seeing?
Well, what's interesting is we're also transforming and evolving as a country around expectations around education, and AI is driving that, which I'm happy that conversation is happening, but I'm upset or I'm disappointed that it took the replacement of those occupations to tell people you don't go to college for a job that's going to be replaced. Yeah. And so now people are, well, maybe I shouldn't go to college. And I hate that was the strategy. I'll take anything we can get. What I'm not saying is, listen, I have every one of my children, Kirk, every one of your children are in college, right? And so I've got a kid with a master's degree already. And so that was, but for me, we were told as kids, my generation was get a college degree, but if you didn't, that's okay. My raising, or me being a parent, and my cohort group was, your kids didn't go to college. Yeah. And so it was almost like a weird societal thing for me. So I pushed my kids to college, and really my job stops at 22. Who cares what they become or who they are after 22? Because I gave them the right that no one could take away from them, that they have a college degree. And so it's now we're hearing that 11.9%, and it's gonna uptick every day. That as AI is evolving, that it's replacing occupations that require a college degree, which is insane in itself. And so what we're saying now is maybe college isn't the most important thing on the planet.
They're saying that 1 out of 4 kids right now is in college that will graduate with a degree that's been made obsolete because of technology.
It's ridiculous.
I think it also shows, it's a sad state for our education, higher education. It shows the total lack of innovation and evolution. They can't
keep up.
They see the data. They know the data. And they refuse to change.
That's right.
Because they'll stick with their traditional model that's worked for them.
Well, look at the JUCOs. JUCOs are getting billions of dollars in grants to go ahead and queue up, or JUCOs and CCs to queue up curriculum to support the increase the trades. Forget about labor. The trades, the basic trades. And they are turning a blind. They're like, nah, we're not going to do it. We're going to still teach math. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Well, I was having this conversation with Kirk. My daughter got accepted to Ohio State yesterday.
All right. So congrats.
That was cool. But I was telling him, we're sitting around having conversations as a family with grandparents and everything like that. And my daughter's wicked smart. And she wanted to be a doctor, right? And I have people sitting there looking at me like I almost used the F-bomb there, but I stopped myself. Like I'm a crazy person because I'm sitting there like, Kaylee, like you need to understand that the medical profession, the way you know it today,
will change.
Is not going to be this in 10 years. And I'm like, so, and everyone's like, like you look like you're crazy trying to tell your daughter, like, maybe being a doctor's not the best route. Like and the scary part is like, we genuinely don't know. We can look at the trends and what's happening. And like, if I was, yeah, exactly. If I was a betting man, which I am, I push my chips to, I wouldn't go try and be a full-blown doctor and spend the next 10 years in school and rack up hundreds of thousands of dollars
right now.
of
They're
debt.
going to use robotics.
Exactly. Like there's event. I did tell her like the PA route or something, like, because what's going to happen is, like, in my humble opinion, eventually they're going to draw your blood. They're going to know your history. It's going to get put into a system that knows what 100 doctors know. And it's going to be able to pinpoint better what's wrong with you, how to fix you. And it's not going to be somebody that spent 10 years and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to be a doctor. It's going to be a PA or a nurse 100%, or something like that.
Think about that. In very short time, when you were diagnosed, you had to do your own research because you're trying to listen to these practicing medicine folks, and you went and got multiple opinions, and each one of those doctors, I'm sure, loved you and concerned about you and wanted you to live and wanted the best for you and gave you their advice. But at the end of the day, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could have just been given a readout that says, hey, Kirk, realistically speaking, if we try every combination possible, you have a 92% chance if you use this. Yeah. If you go with anything else, that you're going to die, right? And guess what Kirk's going to say?
I'm going with the 92.
Yeah. And the doctors no longer become the reliable source for that truth.
Empirical data.
It's stubbornness. I mean, listen, even when I drive here to the office from my house, which is 8 miles away, I put my GPS on. Yeah. I know how to get here.
I know.
But guess what? What I don't know is the jackass down the road just decided to
cause an accident
and crash into the landscape guy, and all of a sudden I'm going to be, and there's no other alternate route for me once I'm jammed. Yeah. So I am looking at analytics to even drive to work. Yeah. Why would I not? I mean, I would just be stubborn to say to myself, if I have this technology, I have the source of truth right in front of me, but I'm going to go ahead and wing it and not know what's going to be on the other side of that road. How foolish is that?
Well, now think about like if you look at it full circle, think about wearable technologies and where that's going to go and the things that'll change in the medical. Like eventually you're going to have a device you wear that's going to notice a physiological change in your body before any blood test or anything like that could pick it up. And again, there'll be a computer system that's like, you have a 92% chance that this is what's happening. So, hey, all you have to do right now is do this, and that goes away. Yeah.
It's true.
It's true. And all of that's going to be tied to what we do. Yeah. All of that is going to, it ties it back into how all of the other utilities create the fifth utility, which is data centers. And people don't, again, I go back to the average person that I talk to on the street has no idea how much their life is tied into this space.
Yeah. No. And so go back to even the game of life. It's go to college or not go to college. That's your choice that you're going to have to come up with at a certain point in the game. Yep. And the game is rigged. If you do go to college, that you're going to earn less now, but you're going to earn more in the future, right? They haven't updated that game. They haven't updated the game. So realistically, there should be now another option.
And it's definitely not
college.
The case
it's non-college or it's trades.
There's a tipping point.
Yeah, they have to change that because here I'm a testimony of it. I have a 29-year-old son who's highly educated. He's got a master's degree from Pepperdine. He just now got his qualification hours to be a full-fledged psychologist, so he can open up an office. He's 29. It's probably cost us $400,000 to get to this point. Okay, he will never recoup that $400,000 as a psychologist because they don't make $300,000 a year, right? So at the very end, he has to say to himself, I've done this to be a servant to other people, but I won't really be able to effectively help people till I'm 30 years old. I'm going to run that out till about 55. So I only have my 25 years of earning. around the business that I put this in. And if you take in consideration that his break-even point is $400,000, we're looking at maybe 40 years old is when he actually can say he's, when he's paid for and everything is good. Is the juice worth the squeeze for my son? And if I would have educated him and sat down with him like you're doing with your daughter and said, hey, bro, I know you want to do this. You could still do this, but you're going to be struggling at 40. Where every time I have a piece of furniture that I'm doing away with, it goes to him opposed to him buying his own furniture, but he has a master's degree. So it's one of these interesting phases I think we're going to hit. And that's why this education right now to high school students are very important to say, hey, listen, it's not Walmart, military, or college, right? In small rural towns. It's military, college, or the trades. And by the way, all three can also resort back into the trades, which all of us have. So we all been in the military, we've all been in college, and we are all in the trades.
Yeah.
Right?
If I could, so I have two boys, as you guys know, too, who are, much younger than Kaylee, but you and I kind of had this conversation yesterday, because of the way that I lived and that I grew up, part of me wants my kids to have the life experience of college, going and just being a kid for a little bit longer.
Because they have their whole life to work.
That's right. So, but what I will be telling my boys is, hey, go to college. I have no issue with that. And it's, honestly, and this, and you guys, I think, have learned this about me now, part of the reason I am the way I am and why I do what I do is because I want to be able to afford them the ability to do those things, right? But what I'm going to tell them is one of two things. Either get a finance MBA degree or get an engineering degree. But then after that, you're going to the trade. You're gonna have that knowledge base and the business side of it that you're going to learn in school. But I still want you to go to the trade, learn the trade. You're going to make a ton of money going through the trade, right? But some of the best people in this space that and it is not an easy transition. It's not at all. But some of the best people in this space are the people that go through the trades, come up, learn, literally physically turning wrenches, screwdrivers, learning how to install this stuff. But then if you can make the jump from that to being able to lead people and understand the business aspect of it, and like you say all the time, find a way to advocate for both sides, right? Your people and the business. That is what will drive a business. That is what will get us to the point to where we can get more people into this space doing the right things, right? It's people that can say, hey, this is how you do it, and this is a route to go. And that's probably what I'm going to do with my boys is something like that, because I do want them to have that life experience. I'm not sitting here knocking college, right? But it's crazy because had I not met you and everything like that, I wouldn't, my family and I wouldn't be where I am or anything like that. But I wouldn't, to your point, I wouldn't know to tell my daughter not to do these things. I'd be one of the other average people out walking around that don't understand the change that's coming.
Yeah.
I think if you came from the military, instead of paying 4 years to go do something, you're getting paid 4+ years to go do something, and you come out with just as much knowledge as a college graduate. And we need to start looking at those transitioning veterans, just like we do as college graduates. We need to start layering data center knowledge on top of them and watching those overlapping skills and trades that someone that went to college may have discovered and someone in the military may have discovered, and let them both compete. And that dovetails us into, as we bring this podcast down, just a sneak peek on what you're doing. Right now, we're running a pilot program with a veteran from the U.S. Navy that just got out within the last 60 days. We also took a kid who's coming home for Christmas break and decided that he doesn't want to pursue his construction management degree at A&M anymore, and he's going to join this pilot as our civilian, and we're going to demonstrate everything that we're talking about right now, where we could take our civilians and we could take our veterans and we could put them together in this melting pot. They don't have to go to college. They could have been a false start like me and started college and then went either into the military, the trades, or this new trade that we're creating. And this pilot program that we're building, it's going to be the first of its kind for this industry, where we're trying to take the standardized requirements for the jobs that the industry agrees are the minimum requirements for a role. And we're going to build curriculum around that with a partnership with a group that we did. And Mike had a pretty genius idea this year where we launched it, like DCAC, the We Do the Work was the campaign. Mm-hmm. But Mike, and I give a lot of credit to Ian on your team for coming up with a Got Milk campaign. So I'm going to leave you with a Got Milk campaign before Mike talks a little bit about what we're doing with this pilot program. But for those that are listening, you know, I'm Gen X. I grew up in Got Milk. Were you around?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so a little history on that. It was a bunch of farmers in California, and they were trying to sell their dairy products, and they all had their different narrative on how to do that. And they hired a marketing firm out of the group came together and hired a marketing firm in San Francisco and said, we need to create a movement. We need to all have the same message, and we all have to have the same narrative. And we have to come together with one market message narrative that'll benefit all the dairy farmers at once. So they created this marketing campaign called Got Milk. And it didn't talk about a dairy. It just talked about a need and how milk is good for everybody. And everyone needs to get milk. And they got celebrities involved with it to help promote it. But Got Milk was what unified all that industry together into one. And Mike and his team, led by Ian, on this strategy that I give credit to him on, is he's like, we need a Got Milk campaign for this industry. And that is called Build Now. And Build Now doesn't mean build data centers, which is what we're going to end up doing. But we have to build teams. And it's going to be something that we will take to the market. And we already have had conversations with various owner-operators that are looking to make pledges. Hey, we're willing to commit to hiring 100 people through the Build Now campaign if they meet these standards in the next amount of time. So we could start standardizing on labor, and people who are like, we have customers right now that are putting down deposits for generator slots for production in Q3 of 2027. We are land banking. We are buying our supply chain for data center delivery in advance as much as we can. We are not banking talent yet because no one has created a vehicle to allow that to happen. We're creating a vehicle that allows people to make a pledge to purchase so many standardized resources of labor that we could build it to their standard in a factory that has curriculum approved from the Department of Education, to where transitioning veterans could use their GI Bill to attend this, and they can go get trained on data centers as an apprentice, a journeyman, and a master, right? And then we can offer them to the fleet, or we can offer it to the data center fleet that requires standardized talent, right? Yeah. So just like when they call for plumbers and they call for electricians, now they'll be able to call just for data center people. And this pilot is ran by a Marine on your team, and it's going to have a Navy veteran and a fall start college kid, and we're going to use our marketing team to follow them along this journey so we can show the world what it is that we're talking about today. And that is, we could take incredible transitioning veterans, incredible humans that are from the civilian community. We could put them together. We all started from somewhere. Now we know where we need to start from both sides. And let's build this thing. And we're going to demonstrate that we could build a product of human labor that, when it's done being built and forged, we will be able to offer to the market, and the industry will accept that as an acceptable minimum requirement of talent to serve their needs in the industry. Do you see it? So Mike's team's running with that program, and I know that we're not really we won't launch that and go live in a big way until probably the end of Q1, but we're going to launch a labor symposium.
That's probably pretty accurate. and it goes back to, and we wrote about this in the Talent Warehouse, Special Operations, great organizations win on talent. If you continue to hunt in the same talent pool, like a stocked pond, it will run out of fish. And the industry's now robbing Peter to pay Paul, or stealing people, as you said, which is untenable. So we are leaning forward to start creating that supply line of just prolific professionals, leaders in industry, and that's a key thing. Leadership is going to be a key part of what we're building beyond the subject matter expertise that these guys are going to gain, whether it's a DCOT operator, it's a CET, critical environment technician, or safety. So we will have multiple tracks depending where people want to play to their strengths that will serve the overwhelming needs of the industry. With these two young men, they are two just mature, driven, professional 20-year-olds. We will test a lot and we will learn a lot, and then we will just be iterative. Anything has to be iterative in what you're learning to fine-tune the course, the pathway, because we are essentially creating a pathway for fall starts or somebody coming out of high school that just wants to get into the industry, and of course, veterans. So very excited, excited to where you're excited to get out of bed at 4:20 in the morning to get your workout in.
They're doing a 6-week boot camp, and they can't be late more than twice, or they get kicked out.
Oh, that's a testament to Forge Now, who we're partnering with on this this initiative. We are starting a second Forge Now, which is this Build Now campaign. Forge Now is, let's just call it general practitioner type trades that could go any place. Build Now is specific to the data center industry, knowing the labor demand, the labor crisis, and the just beautiful career that people can have in this industry. They're getting ahead of the power curve, as we've been talking about, that people just aren't seeing, and they're not making the workforce shifts. But this is going to be powerful. It's going to be exciting. We are going to impact a lot of people's lives. We're going to give them a pathway that just didn't exist.
It'll be a roadmap.
It's a roadmap.
That's it.
It's an augmentation in conjunction to the other mission critical trades that we're trying to bring over to our space and awareness. But they're going to, if we do that, we're just stealing from Peter to pay Paul. Those industries will suffer. So we're having to incubate. We're having to create. And when we first talked about this industry, or me being a practitioner of the cloud space, not having understanding of what it takes to support an infrastructure organization in the DC space, data center space, was quite interesting is the awareness. So right now it's still catching lightning in a bottle. We have transitioning tradesmen that can come over to our side of the fence, or we can hope that there's some false starts, some transition veterans hear about us. This is what I love about the Got Milk campaign, is we're not offering it selfishly to us.
It brings the whole industry together.
It's bringing the industry together to understand that, hey, listen, here's the reality. The reality is we can work on this together. We will benefit from all of this together. And there is zero unintended consequence to what we're trying to achieve. Unlike the Got Milk, what it does, it was created awareness around lactose intolerance. There was no understanding of lactose intolerance until that campaign hit a year later and people were having diarrhea. And so so what that did was they got together and they said, okay, let's create a line of lactose free. You could not, as a kid growing up, it was vitamin D, first of all, which was crazy pill. Skim milk was unheard of. We wouldn't drink that as a kid. That was like drinking water. Remember that growing up as a kid? 2% we were all compromising.
That's right.
But there was nothing lactose free at that time. Got Milk put lactose on the map, and then because we were drinking milk where we were folks that weren't, right? No unintended consequence for Build Now. None. All we're going to do is generate careers for folks that need it, require it, and are deserving of this opportunity. So this is crazy because this is more exciting than when I first came into the industry. And I can't wait to see how this is going to scale to support our entire industry.
This will be a national, if not global, business case study in the making. And
this is a movement. It's not a campaign. So
Yeah.
we're going to create a movement called Build Now, to where everyone could start sending people to this schoolhouse to be certified and trained in data centers. They'll be accredited to where when they're done, they'll have EPI certifications. They'll have everything they need to go into the workforce, certified and accredited to go join the labor pool. Mm-hmm. So this is not just a marketing campaign. Build Now is a movement like Got Milk that is going to have benefits for everyone in the industry. So everyone from the industry that is in demand of talent, which they all are, can come to us and start placing orders now for 3 or 4 quarters from now in terms of the labor they're going to need to support their growth of data center.
I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years this this EDU that we have has its own endowment.
Yeah.
Much like an OU or University of Texas have an endowment, because the partners are going to see this. And if you're listening and you're an Oracle or you're an NVIDIA, reach out. You want to be a part of it? Reach out now, because this is going to be a game changer for the country.
Yeah, because early on, to Mike's point, we will only be able to do so much for so many. And so as we scale this, we will be able to support, but it's going to be a first come. And it will be partner driven. I mean, listen, not all partners, some partners will take from this as an opportunity opposed to participate and invest in this opportunity. We're not interested in that. We've been part of that early on, where we just need people or throw us people. We're not, and then, or, 2 for 1 on military veterans, but industry experts, we'll pay you full price for. We're not interested in any of that conversation. We're interested in partners that are going to invest and grow, because if they don't, no, we're not going to be able to solve for this.
Well, and that's to your point. Like, we've thrown everything at the wall that we can as an industry to see what will stick. I think to your point, and I agree with you, is like, it's time to do something different.
We have to introduce a new
insanity.
The benefit to the industry from a labor perspective is the price of labor continues to increase because demand exceeds supply. We're going to create a way to put more supply on the field, which will benefit everyone. It'll lower the price of labor for everyone as well. But labor is a large component of cost of building these data centers. Mm-hmm. So this is real shit, right? And this will be a game changer. We're creating a vehicle that's never been created before. This is essentially us in 1897 creating the IBEW. That's what we're really trying to do right now, is create a whole nother craft, a brand new trade. And I think that if you're in this industry, you know exactly what it is we're talking about. No one got into this industry because they knew about data centers. Most of this industry fell into this industry on accident because they knew someone that was already in the industry. That's how it started, right? No one knew, hey, I'm going to go pursue a degree, or I'm going to go pursue a career in data centers, because one, there's no place to get a degree. And the way that we announce our careers is very bespoke, right? So now we're going to standardize on roles throughout the industry so that doctors are doctors, and these are these, and those are those, and data center people will be data center people, right? And it takes time, just like the labor force will always follow the technology, just like the automobile industry. The cars hit the market and they hit the roads before the regulation, the government oversight, the ethics that came with it, and the rules of the road. I mean, you didn't have to have a license for how long? Now you can't drive without one. Right now you need insurance on top of that. So we started evolving as an industry. The labor force, the crafts, the professionalism that came with that followed, and that's the same that we're seeing today. So shifting gears into the thing, go ahead. You were going to say.
One note is it will be GI Bill certified. Yeah. So veterans can use their GI Bill to fund their pathway,
their training
into a lucrative industry.
And we'll find creative financial solutions for the civilian space too, to support that, because and investment into that, because listen, at the end of the day, we are going to require investment from all three parties, from us, from our clients, and also from the students that are going to participate, or the candidates going to participate in this. So we will find creative and resourceful ways to fund this, because we don't want that to be a blocker. We don't want that to be a roadblock for someone to say, hey, at the end of the day, the reason why I'm dropping out of school is because I can't pay for it. How am I supposed to pay for this trade? So we have to create an investment for them in the future too.
I love it. Well, let's bring this podcast home. Let's start with some projections or predictions for today's game. We'll start with you, Joseph.
Listen, we were extremely bullish last year on a very highly competitive Army team that was, I think, sitting at the same spot Navy is sitting today. So I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-point win for Army. I'm not even talking about covering the spread and we lose. It's going to be 3-point game win Army.
Okay. All right. So we need a drug test on Monday, because obviously he has no idea what he's talking about. What's your predictions?
Let me go 24-13 Navy.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
Covering the spread.
All right.
I'm going to be a great delivery guy, and I'm going to back my sales guy. I'm going to say Army by 7.
7, wow. You could have went 2
hey.
to prove that point, but I like it. 7.
Hey. Fuck that weak shit.
There it is. Join the club, the Curse Club.
What's your prediction?
All right, so this is the one thing that's the Army-Navy rivalry. So rankings don't matter going into that game, and you don't know what's going on in the social dynamic or chemistry of those campuses right now, but those make a big difference, right? Mm-hmm. So this is one of the games that could obviously go either way. I have a nephew at West Point, so I'm definitely going Navy, right? Because my brother's West Point, and I could never root for West Point just based on all this shit. It's like being around a Buckeyes fan. It's just like there's no faster way to be a Penn State or Michigan fan than to hang out with an Ohio State Buckeyes fan.
Isn't it impressive, the list he puts on Navy? You know what I'm saying?
Well, listen, this game hasn't been played in that stadium since 2016. Who won that game in 2016?
Oh, here we go. Must have been the Army. I'll tell you this.
So that's the thing is that's going to be our little.
It's going to be an awesome game, and this time next year we're going to be at that game. We're going to be co-hosting and co-sponsoring the Horse Soldier Bourbon Tailgate Party. We're going to be out there probably, maybe even if we can, without freezing our asses off, do a podcast for the Army-Navy game again next year.
That'd be cool.
That would.
That'd be real
Army-Navy game for us for sure next year. So I want to give my best to Scott Neal and Bill Mazzetti from Horse Soldier Bourbon and Rose in there, definitely at the Army-Navy game today, along with my dad, my brother, and a bunch of other guys that we know. So it's going to be cold out there. I've already seen the pictures, but I do think Navy's going to – I think it's going to be a close game. Navy's going to win. I'm not calling it by points, but Navy will pull it out at the end just because they have too much momentum.
Hey, but listen, we got to take this a step further. We should live stream the podcast from the Army-Navy game next year.
We have an HR thing now that says we can't do that stuff probably. So, hey, thank you for joining the revolution. Thank you for your time today, guys. And like I said, I hope that you subscribe, share this podcast with anybody that you know that's in the veteran community, and let them know that we're putting together a movement that they could join that'll allow them to not only reinvent themselves, but they'll reinvent their careers, and a new career means a new life. So we're doing this for the industry, and we're doing this to help others. So thank you for listening to the podcast.
Thank you.